Hi, my name is Austin Kunis, and I am so glad to be here in Denver at the Denver Museum of Art to talk about museum, restoration, renovation, and finances. Now, we're going to talk about this through an example at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, also known as SFMOMA, and in this presentation, we like to call the new SFMOMA, meaning more to more people. So to start off, we're going to look at the evolution of budgeting. So when this museum first started their budgeting for the renovation and operation, they estimated it was going to be about $33 million. Now, this money would come from three main parts. It would come from contributions, earned revenue, and endowment funds. However, after crunching all these numbers, they ended up more in the $53 to $54 million range. Now, how do you get there? You may ask. It's a pretty steep jump. Now, there's all sorts of factors between new programming, new people, yada, 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 new this, new that. But the most comprehensive, cohesive factor that we could look at for this is when they're expanding, it's a bigger space, and the bigger the space, the bigger operation cost is. Because within that space, you have new programs, you have new building parts, you have new people, you have so many new elements. But basically, the bigger the space, the bigger the operating cost. Now, this is SFMOMA. It is very beautiful, but it did not always look like that. It looked like this. And although this looks like a fully functioning art museum, it's not. It's not a fully functioning modern art museum. It's a closed museum. Now, they were closed for about 3 years as they went under this project. And how do they keep their budget floating? How do they stay afloat during this time if people aren't coming to see their art? Well, simple. They started two main campaigns. They started one campaign for contributions and operations to the museum. Then additionally, they started for a fund to further the art collection. Now, this kind of came suddenly because the closure was not expected. But fortunately with their board, they were able to get the ball rolling on a significant operation campaign. So for their capital and building operations, their first goal is $480 million, which seems like quite a bit of money. But wait, it went even further to $555 million. But wait, it went even more to $610 million, with 40% of that going to the endowment for the operation and continuation to keep the museum open while it was closed. But like all nonprofits, what they want is have the board start this fire to get the ball rolling, to get these funds flowing, to ensure that the museum has the ability to stay up and running even when it's closed. And additionally, the fund for the art donations, it got hundreds and hundreds of donors to help further the collection. So how does something like this impact financially on an organization? Well, we're going to look at particularly information that we find in the 990 forms for SFMOMA. So the first biggest thing we're going to look at is the contribution funds. So the average contribution fund for SFMOMA is somewhere around the $60 to $90 million range, which although is a lot of money, is nothing compared to their 2012 contribution fund, in which they were at $239 million. So we see a sharp increase in their contributions to keep the museum up and getting ready to go into this major renovation. We also see an increase of staff. So their staff increases in 2012 by about 75 people. And so these could be people from, museum liaisons to the contractors, to the union reps within the museum, countless people. But 75 people, it's a pretty big chunk of people. Then we also see a growth in their assets. So if we look at their 990 forms through the years, we could essentially see them building it financially on paper. So in 2013, their building and land assets were around $218 million. 2014, that increased to $362 million. And keep in mind, the museum was closed during this time, but in 2015, it increased even further to $430 million. So you could see as the museum's closing, you could see it's impacting their financial statements as they're accumulating more and more assets and worth as an organization. So once a museum opened, how do they measure their success? Well, we have qualitative information that is something that you just see when you go into a museum. They looked at these galleries and they thought, were they crowded? Were they noisy? Were they loud? Was the design going to work? And it did. They felt that the design was nice, it was quiet, it wasn't crazy, it worked for the purpose that they wanted. And then we also have some more quantitative data for their measurement of how they were operating. So the first and foremost was their patron attendance. So by fall of 2016, and they opened up in May, they had already met their average annual attendance of 625,000. So not even a year, they already met their average attendance numbers. In addition, in that time, they also had 65,000 memberships. And so this is just a couple of months. They've already met their numbers. They also look for advanced ticket sales. So advanced tickets to the museum, they expected when they reopened were to be about 20%. However, they went to 44%. And then the golden measurement, which all nonprofits aim for, is the people under 35. Now, before the renovation, they were averaging about 20% of their patrons is under 35 years old, but after the renovation opened, that spiked to 44%. So they hit the goal line with getting these new, younger patrons into their organization. So now we're going to look at, are they successful? Is SFMOMA successful? So we're going to look at the good parts, because it's kind of hard to tell. So the good parts, they have a brand new museum. They have a brand new museum, a gorgeous building. Their collection is expanding, and they have these younger people coming in. So all sorts of, for the sake of an organization, it seems to be great. However, the tricky part is here in their financials. So once they opened, their net revenue dipped to a negative $11 million for the fiscal year of 2016. And then in 2017, it went up to negative $5 million. So we could see they are kind of climbing out of the red, but we're not 100% sure. There's no guarantee. We could see a trend starting, but we don't know if that's going to continue because that's only 2 years of data that we have since they've been open. But for the most part, they're fairly successful. It's just kind of a waiting game to see how they grow financially over these next few years. So moving forward, they have a few strategies to keep the ball rolling on their success. So first is to keep that contribution and grant fund going. So starting with their board, getting these gifts to go and also tapping in to the demographic. In that 3 years that SFMOMA was closed, the tech industry has been growing and growing. So now you have all these new young tech billionaires that the board could try to incorporate to give funds to museum. And this is especially important as prices of arts are always increasing. The art museum may not be able to afford a $1 million painting or $5 million photograph. But by reaching out to these donors, the donors could purchase them and then either donate them or have them displayed in their name, but kind of getting this kind of contribution and donation system flowing and going. And then they're also looking to expand their programming. So with a bigger space, they're always looking, what can we fill it with now? And they're also looking to expand their educational programming. So what they're looking for is to get their programming to reach 55,000 students, which is almost every single student in the San Francisco Bay Area. And so what exactly does this mean? Meaning more to more people. Well, you basically have new aspects. See, you have new building, new art, and new people. You have the younger people who are coming to SFMOMA. You have the new art because they have this so much more gallery space to display, and at the root of it all, you have this new building that you've created. So SFMOMA is a great example of seeing how with a board that starts the fire to get things going. And now, of course, as we saw, they do take a dip in their finances, but overall they seem to be succeeding and growing, and we'll see with time. But hopefully some of this information could be applied to the Denver Art Museum's restoration, and moving forward, it could be as successful, if not more, than SFMOMA.